god, how long has it been since a Garrison episode? It seems like since he got his original sex back, Trey and Matt haven't had any episode ideas for him. Apart from minor roles such as in 201, the author seemingly left him alone, instead pushing Mr. Mackey as the main faculty member. Mackey's character inconsistency aside, this may have been a good choice in theory, since Garrison kind of came full circle as a character. There was still comedic potential for him due to his many prejudices, but he didn't need to be used as much as in the earliest seasons. Still, it would be nice for him to represent conservative beliefs in town, instead of the ever-spotlight-hogging Cartman, Steven, Skeeter, or some other random Daryl Weathers. Thus, with the second episode of the new season, Where My Country gone, it seems like the fans' long-awaited wish came true. Not only that, he also serves as an allegory for Donald Trump, the satire of whom has been wildly requested. And we're getting Jimbo as his most avid supporter. Stop spoiling us like that, Matt and Trey. Now, actually do spoil us. The plot summary goes as follows. Kyle gets a medal from Obama for his speech at the end of the last episode. Yay, continuity! Back in Crunchy's microbrew, we see Mr. Garrison complaining about the immigration problem, as he, Jimbo, and Mr. Adler watch Kyle get a ride back home with Caitlyn Jenner. The ride goes very well, winning an applause from the party audience. By the way, these are the immigrants. Of course the Canadians. Another moveset, eh? The next day, Garrison lashes out at the Canadian immigrant kids attending his class. We get a lovely bit where a reference to Muslim customs to pray 5 times a day. They face east and play Chuck Mangione on trumpets. Pacey Principal is outraged at Garrison's behavior and signs the faculty up for Canadian language classes. As if it couldn't get any more wonderfully absurd, we're told that in the Canadian alphabet, G stands for guy, P for bear, and V for friend. Oh, South Park. While Garrison has a musical number suspiciously similar to Cartman's minority song from the episode P, Cartman himself skillfully convinces the other boys that Kyle's speech caused the immigration increase.
I'm sitting right here, and he's sitting right here.
When Kyle tries to defend himself, everyone leaves the table, unable to listen to another one of his gay speeches. More on that later. So multiple immigration opponents rally to voice their support for Garrison as a leader. He makes a promise to get rid of Canadians, and as we'll see later on, he's a man who keeps his promises. No matter what. He springs into action immediately by interrupting a presentation put on by the Canadian students, and saying all immigrants should be, quote-unquote, fucked to death. Garrison is fired, and in order to smooth things out, Cartman orders Butters to get a Canadian girlfriend by using lines from Lion King 2. Believe me, it all makes sense in context. Just a stray observation, Kevin really likes that slide, doesn't he? Meanwhile, Garrison is growing in popularity as he finds out his plan to build a wall has already been realized. By the Canadians, who don't want to let Americans into their country, because they don't want to share their cool shit. Garrison, being a hypocrite, cannot resist the temptation of finding out what it is, and he's dropped from the Niagara Falls in a barrel.
He's dead.
And never coming back, just like Unohana. At the same time, Butters' relationship with the Canadian girl is in progress. Cartman calls him and tells him to move on to Hot Cosby, but Butters says he doesn't want to make it feel rushed. Wait, Hot Cosby? Does Cartman suggest he should rape her? Why would you want rape to be a symbolic union? Anyway, Butters gets invited to a dinner with Charlotte's family, and he finds out Canadians don't want to be here, because they were driven out by an asshole president who put up a wall on the US border. Surprisingly, it's not Duck President, but Canadian Donald Trump. Butters gets emotionally invested in his relationship with Charlotte, and they decide to try Slow Cosby instead. Apparently it means love. So wait, love is a slower version of rape. You know, I'm not gonna ponder about the implications of this. Up north, Garrison wakes up and finds Canada to be a post-apocalyptic wasteland with only suicidal salarymen about. Jeez. So then he enters the president's office and gives Canadian Trump a Hot Cosby, resulting in the latter's death. As he promised. Canadians all over South Park hear of these news and they return to their homeland. Butters and Charlotte have to part ways, and I'm sure we will never see her again. Or will we? No, I'm actually serious, which is it? South Park has been quite surprising with its continuity these days. The episode ends with Garrison announcing his election candidacy and driving off with Caitlyn Jenner as his running mate. Is anyone else thinking the same thing? He should represent the pissed off and angry party. When Kyle tries to explain the hypocrisy of him and his followers, but everyone is angry at him for making a speech again. More on that in a minute. Exactly as last year, the second episode of the season was a much welcome improvement over the premiere. As much as I think Gluten-Free Ebola was the better episode overall, this one was the better start of the series. Where My Country Gone offers us two possible subplots for the season, apart from the implementation of political correctness. The first one being Garrison's new presidential candidacy, and the second one being Kyle's development in his moralizing tendencies. Kyle's moral lessons, stated occasionally at the end of episodes, have been a long-time tradition of the show ever since Stan stopped doing the same thing. But sort of, Kyle's my favorite character, so it is tradition. I find it interesting that Trey and Matt decided to tackle that part of his character, and I wonder if they'll do anything else with it. For now, they just stated it exists, so I'm still waiting for some development. Kyle's speeches tie into another theme of the season, which is going to be more relevant during the next episode, so I'm going to talk about it then. The structure of the episode in itself was similar to the last one. Despite this being a Garrison episode, the focus was split between him, Kyle, Butters and Gartman's group, which sort of reminds me of the earlier seasons, where Trey and Matt actually bothered to have several subplots intertwine instead of stretching one out for as long as possible. The characterization stayed mostly consistent. Stan going along with Cartman's new conspiracy is probably the effect of Jameson's. Randy's still PC, although he seemingly lost his Oakleys. It looks like Mr. Mack is on the verge of a nervous breakdown thanks to PC Principal, which is good. I personally find him more effective in a subservient role, rather than him being just another choleric. Now at least he should find something in common with Tweak. The comedy in Act 1 was top-notch, and I wish it could have stayed that way throughout the whole episode. I love the tiny little details, like Ned raising his voice box instead of a lighter during Garrison's concert. The remaining parts slowed down, but admittedly had me chuckle a few times as well, for example with the political debate near the wall, where Garrison just started to insult his fellow debatees and stated he just wanted to see the cool shit behind the wall. In a typical South Park fashion, both the PC liberal douches and the Garrison-like conservative bigots are made to look like idiots. So yeah, overall good episode. It seems I won't have an opportunity to wax philosophical about this one, so I'll just see you in a few days. Oh right, before we drive off and run over an old lady in the process, let's first address the Cosby in the room, shall we? So Garrison rapes Canadian Trump, and I don't think it's awful. I mean, the act of rape itself is horrible of course, but let's separate fiction and reality here. I have defended rape in fiction before, mainly in Game of Thrones Season 5, because it is a personal belief of mine that rape, just as about anything, can be used as a plot device that can have its place in a story. In the case of Game of Thrones, it served to show Ramsay as a horrible human being, but that's not the case in South Park. First of all, let's figure out what kind of aim it had in this particular episode. Garrison fucks Trump to death for laughs, and yet I would argue the joke doesn't entirely rely on shock value. It instead plays with our expectations, as at least in universe, no one really expects Garrison to literally fulfill his promise about fucking Canadians to death. If the joke relied on the actual act of rape, we wouldn't have needed the build-up from all his interviews. And with this kind of build-up, there isn't really any alternate resolution other than Garrison realizing his promise. The scene is never shown in actual detail, which makes it actually pretty tame for South Park standards. And above all else, no matter how absurd it sounds, I don't think in this case it had any sexual meaning. The act was more political than sexual even. We are probably to treat it more symbolically. The moral of the episode is that if you don't want immigrants to come to your country, you have to become involved in fixing theirs. Garrison wants to take down a political establishment, and, well, he has his own ways of doing things. And before you say it destroys Garrison's character or something, you do realize he's had sex with animals before, right? Last time I checked, animals weren't able to give consent. I mean, I haven't checked myself. I didn't try to have sex with animals. Honest. Well, now that I have explained myself, I'm sure I'm not gonna get any hate whatsoever.
Dude, unbelievable.
Okay, I should probably run away now. Buckle up, buckaroos. Buddy?
I pointed at my sister and then I ran away. I ran away, yes, I ran away. Danger stared me in the face and I ran away. My sister was grounded for 3 years and a day, so I said she was adopted and then I ran away.